Okay, we're going to start with chapter 2. So if you will go ahead and get ready, we're going to start with the very beginning of this chapter. So purchasing, you're going to hear a lot of words in this chapter that mean the same thing. So purchasing, procurement, buyers, buying, sourcing, all those things mean the same thing. Basically, it's what it takes to buy the things that it takes to run your business. So if we go back to our salon example from chapter 1, it's the things like shampoo, but it's also the things like trash bags, paper towels, things that it takes to run the business. It's also scheduling and figuring out how much staffing you need and all that. All of that falls usually under procurement. So we're going to talk a little bit, if you'll follow along with me now. I am on slide 5, purchasing. So obtaining the merchandise, the equipment, the raw materials, the services, and then we're going to talk about MRO, which is maintenance, repair, and operating supplies in exchange for money or its equivalent. Merchants are people that you buy from, and then industrial buyers are people who buy raw materials for and do something to them and then usually sell them to someone else who's in the manufacturing. So you'll hear purchasing, like I said, or procurement or sourcing, all those mean the same thing. Contracting is sometimes what people say, I'm going to contract for that service. So if you have a company that provides tax preparation, for example, for a corporation, they would contract with you for the fact that you're going to prepare their taxes. Supply management is something that you hear in a lot of places now, product supply or supply management. And what that means is we're not just buyers anymore generally in people who are procurement professionals. They are identifying what needs to be bought, they're getting it, they're making sure it's in the right place at the right time, and that they're turning over that inventory quickly. So I'll talk to you a little bit more about that. We're on slide 7 now. So the primary goals of purchasing are making sure that there's always everything that we need. So if you think about the way you purchase for your own home, you don't want to have, like I said before, 5 gallons of milk in the refrigerator because it will go bad. But you don't want to run out of milk and have your children not have anything for breakfast in the morning, or you have not anything for breakfast in the morning either. So you want to have an uninterrupted flow. That's what that means. So if you think about the milk in this scenario, that's the raw material. It doesn't make a breakfast, but if you add it to cereal, or if you put it in a glass and put toast and eggs with it, that makes a breakfast. But the milk by itself isn't really something that's enough for breakfast. So that's a raw material. We want to make sure that the finished goods, so the finished, quote, breakfast in this scenario, is the best quality that it can be, and that the people who are eating that breakfast or consuming our product are as happy as they can be. And the way that we do that is we find good suppliers, we watch over our inventory, and we make sure what we have is the right thing at the right time, at the right quality, and we make sure that we're paying the right price for it. So we're going to talk a little bit about, on slide 8, about how there's a lot of financial significance about how well you do your job. I want to go to slide 9 and show you this. So I know this probably looks a little scary, but don't be scared. In the first column there, it talks about gross sales. So that's how much we sold, $1 million. If we say that we sold $1 million, but it cost us $500,000 worth of people and raw materials to manufacture that, then we have a profit of $500,000. Then we had to pay our rent, we had to pay our salespeople, we had to pay the light bill, we had to pay our insurance. All those things were $450,000. They call that SG&A. So we made about $50,000 if we look at that very first example under simplified profit and loss statement. But if we think about this, if we go back into our salespeople and we say, sales, you got to sell more. And they say, okay, instead of selling $1 million, we're going to sell 1.1 million. You can see that we've now, at the very bottom, we've made $55,000. But if we go to our purchasing people and we say, we need you to get the cost of goods sold, they call that COGS, C-O-G-S, the cost of goods sold. So that is, how much was the milk? How much was the egg? How much was the toast? How much was the butter? All those things, that is the cost of goods sold to make our breakfast. I need you to get that down 10%. You can see it doubles the amount of money that we have in profit at the bottom. So it's very important that if you're a procurement professional, that you're constantly trying to find the very best price that still maintains quality and delivery that you need. We're going to skip over slide 10 because it's just complex and you don't need to understand this for this class. But I want to walk through with you the steps on slide 11 about material requisition. So if I work in the factory, I'm going to come to somebody and say, I need to buy the following. And that's a planned order release. And that's going to say, I plan on building breakfast for my family 5 days next week. And there's 4 people in my family, and everybody eats 2 eggs. And it's going to do all the multiplication. It's going to realize we need 8 eggs. It's also going to say sometimes when we open the box and we get it home, 1 egg is broken. So we're going to order 9 eggs to be safe. Then we're going to say Randall's has them on sale. HEB doesn't have them on sale, but they're closer to my house. So I'm going to go get them at HEB. I'm going to look at the pricing. That's step 2. And then I'm going to go and place my purchase order, PO, people call it. And an RFQ is a request for proposal or a request for quote or quotation. Just, you should know those acronyms are on your test, which is why they're orange. This is a very complicated thing that your book has. You don't need to understand all this. What I want you to understand, this is an example of what a purchase requisition or a PO would look like. What I want you to understand is that the steps are usually that somebody's got to approve this. And so it needs to be looked at because we want to make sure the system hasn't gone crazy and told us that we need to buy 1,200 eggs accidentally, that we just need 9 eggs. We don't need 900 or 90, and we don't want it to tell us that we're overstocked on eggs. We already have eggs in the refrigerator. We don't need to buy any. We want to make sure that it makes sense what it's telling us. So if you use what we call e-procurement, which means you have a system telling you to do this, it's much less costly and much quicker. It's also usually very accurate. It's instant, which is what real time means, and it lets you track what's coming and when it's coming. So if you order your groceries and you have them delivered and you say, I need eggs delivered on Monday and I'm going to need another shipment of eggs delivered on Friday because I will have used all the eggs I have by Friday, making those 5 breakfasts. You can track it. So that's another reason why people really like procurement, e-procurement. Small value purchase order. So if you're going to buy pepper, you buy pepper 1 time a year to put on your eggs. You don't really need it very often. And maybe you buy it from somebody that's the only thing they sell. You can't get it at the grocery store. You have to just buy it from the pepper store. A good way to do that would be to have a corporate purchasing card, which is a credit card. And they called a P card for procurement. And what that lets you do is that you can restrict that. You can say, do not let somebody go to the movies and buy anything that's at the movie theater with this, but they can buy it from these kinds of suppliers. You can also, this is going to be on your test as well, you can also use blanket purchase orders. A blanket purchase order says, I'm going to give you this purchase order and number, and every time I need something, I'm going to give you this purchase order number. And until the amount that I gave you is used up, keep using it. It's almost like a gift card. You're telling the person that you're buying it from, keep on sending me the bill against this purchase order number until there's no more money left on this purchase order. And it just makes it less work for you to not have to continue to write purchase orders over and over and over for things you buy all the time. It's almost like in the old days, people would have an account at the grocery store. They would go and buy everything that they needed, and at the end of the month, they would get one bill. This is kind of the similar concept of opening up a purchase order and saying, just keep on billing me against that until there's no more money left on it. One other thing I want to talk about, this very last bullet, using a fixed order interval. If you have anything on auto ship that you buy, like dog food or makeup or anything like that, if any of you belong to Dollar Shave Club, where they send you razor blades on a frequent basis, it's something that you know you're going to buy, you know you're going to use it often, and you just don't even want to think about it. You know what? Send me 10 cases of paper towels every other week, because I know that's about how many I use, and just keep on sending them to me until I take. So that's called a fixed order interval. Outsourcing is deciding whether you should make something in-house or whether you should have someone else make it for you and just buy it from them already made. So an example of this, all of us are capable of opening a cake mix, adding some oil, some water, and some eggs, and stirring it up and baking it and making a cake. But probably often we don't do that. We go to a bakery, or we go to Kroger or HEB or Randall's or Walmart, and we buy it because it's just better. They do a better job in the bakery there, and it tastes delicious, and it's a little bit more expensive, but it's not as much of a pain in the rear, so that's what we do. So that is a very, very good way to do it. If you were doing that all the time, backward vertical integration would be you would go and buy a bakery so that you wouldn't have to outsource to them anymore. So if you're somebody that says, I have my parts painted, at some point you might make a decision to buy a paint shop so that you could still have that specialization and not have to do it yourself, but you would own it. It wouldn't have to, the profit of that wouldn't be lost to you. The make or buy decision on the bottom here is a strategic decision. It's on your test. Make or buy is a strategic decision. Outsourcing is the act of actually buying the materials and getting them from someone else, in the scenario of like the bakery or having somebody paint a part for you. So those are two different things. People sometimes get them confused on the test, but you need to know which one is which. The make or buy decision is a strategy. Outsourcing is actually doing it. All right, so reasons that people outsource. It's usually cheaper, right? So if the ovens at the bakery are making 50 cakes a day and you're making one cake twice a year, they're obviously much better at it. They have better equipment. They can do it because they're doing more of them, and that's all they're doing. You may say, I need more than I'm able to make. I'm going to outsource this because I need 100 cakes and I only have 5 ovens. And I just can't be doing that all the time. So I'm going to have somebody else who has 100 ovens do that for me. I may not know how to do it. Or I may not have the skills. That's lack of expertise. Or I may just say, the quality that I get from someone else doing it is much better. So a good example of that is I'm perfectly capable of cutting my own lawn, but I don't do it. I have somebody that has much better equipment, a 3 or 4 foot wide lawnmower who can just buzz through our yard and do it. And he does about 10 other yards on our street. He does a much better job. He edges it. He does it all day, every day, and he's much better at it than me. So his quality is better. So the reasons that I would say I don't want to outsource. So this is the reason to make. So if you'll remember on that previous slide, it says make or buy decision. The make or buy decision is a strategic decision. Should we make it or should we buy it? If we buy it, we're asking somebody else to do it for us. If we make it, we may say, I don't want anyone to know my secret recipe for cake. I have proprietary secret technology that I don't want anybody else to do it. I may say nobody makes cake as good as I do, so there's not a competent supplier. I may say I want to make sure that we only use vegan butter and non-cage eggs, and so I want better quality control over the ingredients. I may say I'm home by myself doing nothing anyway. I might as well just bake the cake myself. I'm not doing anything else. So these are some reasons. Obviously, cost. All right, so this is a chart. You don't need to know this, but this is how you can graph for yourself whether you should make something or buy something. You can make a graph and say, at this point, right where these lines all intersect, it's better for me to make it, and inside the square, it's better for me to buy it. This is all a bunch of math. You don't need to worry about it. The supply base is the list of suppliers that you have that you use. Generally, you want as few suppliers as you can have, because the more you buy from a few suppliers, the better pricing you can generally get. A preferred supplier is one of your lead suppliers, and that is usually someone who either has something that no one else has, or someone that you've built a strategic relationship with because you buy a lot of things from them. Choosing a supplier, we're going to do a whole section on this, but ESI is what I want you to know on this. Early supplier involvement is basically saying, if I'm going to start a new manufacturing process, the earlier I get my suppliers involved, the better I will be, because they will tell me things I may not know. You know, if you think that shampoo that we're going to manufacture has to be purple, you should know it's going to cost a little bit more, because to make purple, we have to do red and blue coloring in it, and it's going to be twice as expensive. If you could just have it be light blue or light pink, you could save 3 cents per gallon and it would be less expensive to manufacture. I wouldn't necessarily know that. I might just say, hey, my favorite color is purple. I want it to be purple. But I wouldn't realize, unless I talk to a supplier early on, that I'm making a choice that affects the cost of it to be manufactured. So that's important. This is also on your test, total cost of ownership. I want to explain to you about total cost of ownership. I'm going to use an example that you should all understand about a car. If I have a Chevy Impala and I have to go get an oil change, it's about $40. If I have a Lamborghini and I have to go get an oil change, it's about $400. So yes, the Lamborghini costs me more at the beginning, of course, than my Chevrolet, but it also costs me more to own over time because everything's more expensive. The tires are more expensive, the gas is more expensive, the service is more expensive. So total cost of ownership says, how much does it cost me today? And then over the long term to own this, how long does this cost to do that? People call that TCO, total cost of ownership. This is a very complex slide saying what I just told you about how much it costs, so don't worry about that. So single source is different from sole source. I want you to understand single source says I only have one supplier that gives me this part. I only shop at Randall's. What that means then is if Randall's doesn't carry something, I don't buy it. But what it also means is if I buy all my groceries at Randall's, I can save 10 cents a gallon on my gas because they give me a frequent shopper card and they give me special coupons in my email and things like that. So there's reasons on the left that show you that why that's a good idea. But reasons on the right of why I should have more is I want some competition. I want to have better information. I want to make sure that if I need 15 pounds of ground beef because I'm having a party and Randall's only has 10, I have a second source I can go to and get the other 5. So there's 2 ways that people in procurement are usually organized. One is centralized, one is decentralized. Centralized means everyone is in one place at the corporate office and they buy everything. Decentralized usually means that every plant or every division, every location, every region buys their own stuff and they may have different suppliers. So what that would mean is if I'm in a decentralized environment, it might mean I buy my office supplies from Office Depot, and it might mean that my peers in our London office buy from a completely different company. That may be fine because they're in London and I'm in Houston, but it does make us not able to go back and negotiate a contract for our entire spend with one company and lower our prices. So there's advantages to both of these models. You just have to think about it. The advantages and disadvantages are listed on slide 30. Most people have on slide 31 a hybrid. Okay, my big pet peeve, you need to know this about me. If you spell the word tariff wrong, I'm going to count it wrong. T-A-R-I-F-F. Try to remember it like free and fun. Not T-A-R-R-I-F. Spell it correctly. A tariff is a tax or a duty. So that is something that is paid when something is shipped from outside of the United States or to outside of the United States. That's what you need to know on this slide. On slide 33, the reasons that people source around the globe is that you can get better quality, better cost, and usually better delivery if you open the field of suppliers to everyone. Things that you need to understand and that can make it more difficult are that you may have to speak another language. You may have to have more improved logistics. So you have to know, oh, that's on a ship and it's not going to get here for 3 weeks. So I have to make sure I ordered it in enough time to get it here. You have to worry about whether an industry in another country might be impacted by their political environment or their commerce, their currency could be devalued, all kinds of things like that. So it's more complex, but there's generally advantages to doing it as well. Incoterms you'll learn about a lot in the exports class, but Incoterms are uniform rules that say who has the risk. So in the United States, if Amazon ships something to your door and it's stolen, is it your fault or do they have to replace it? You don't know. Depends on how you ordered it and who you ordered it. If it's an international shipment, Incoterms govern that. They say, when does the risk transfer? When does it become now the responsibility of the person that bought it versus the responsibility of the person that sold it? If you have to remember one word about Incoterms, it's risk. Incoterms defines risk. You should know about barter. You probably know this word, but barter basically means if you'll cut my hair, I'll mow your grass. If you will give me 6 sacks of flour, I will sell you this tractor. Whatever it may be, it's doing things without the exchange of money. And finally, as we wrap up here, if you work for a government or a nonprofit, there's a lot of rules that are part of the procurement process that you need to be aware of. And usually bid bonds, performance bonds, payments bonds these are all in your test, so you need to know. A bid bond says, if I respond to this bid, this RFP or RFQ, request for quotation, request for proposal, I will fulfill whatever I say I will do. A bid bond basically says, if you give me this contract, I'll accept it and I will fulfill it. Performance bond says it'll be on time and it'll meet the specifications. Performance bonds are found a lot in construction. So we're saying this project's got to be done in 6 weeks, and every day you're late, you are going to be penalized. A performance bond says it's like an insurance policy for the government agency that bought it, that says this work will be done on time. And a payment bond says, if I remodel your house and I put carpet in and then I don't pay the people who I bought the carpet from because I'm a contractor, a payment bond says you can't come and repossess the carpet out of my house because my contractor didn't pay. So just make sure that no one can come and get anything like that because the contractor did not fulfill their bidder. The bidder did not fulfill their requirements. That's the end of this chapter. So go ahead and close this up, log out and open up the chapter 3, and we will continue on, and then we will get ready for your first test.